Okay, so original EPaxos paper appeared at SOSP 2013, I believe. So it's been almost 9 years at this point, almost 10 years. And I think EPaxos is kind of one of these replication protocols, but one of the most known replication protocols, or leaderless replication protocols, rather, right? So if we look at more traditional consensus-based replication like multi-Paxos or Raft, they all have strong leaders. And EPaxos, it was taking the inspiration from fast Paxos, which still has a leader, and kind of got away from the idea of having a single strong leader. And they called it a leaderless protocol, leaderless replication, when in fact, there is still a leader, right? Like each node, it kind of leads on the per command basis. Yeah, so I think the best way to try to talk about this is to go to the image that the authors of the Revisted paper have included here, that they describe how the protocol works. The basic idea is a client can communicate with any node, any replicant in the protocol. The client will send a request. Let's say, in this case, right here, the client sends x5, set 5 to x to replica 1. So this replica 1 becomes kind of opportunistic leader for this particular request, and it will try to replicate it in a cluster. Right. So in this particular case, replica A doesn't know of any other commands that may interfere or conflict with this x set to 5 command. So it will replicate the actual request, the actual command, along with the information about what it knows kind of that can possibly interfere with this, which in this case is nothing, right? So when this replication reaches to a fast quorum of nodes, in this case, they only need 2 nodes. We have reached B and C. None of these nodes, B and C, know of any other interference, any other dependencies or conflicts for this particular x set to 5 command. So they will reply back to the opportunistic leader A that A, all good, we received this command, there is nothing interfering with it, you can commit. And at this point, replica A, the opportunistic leader, can commit this operation and essentially signal the client that the operation, the request, has been made durable, replicated, and committed. At the same time, we have like some other clients that may be talking to a different set of nodes, right? So here we have another command that writes 9 to x, being sent from the client to replica E, right? And this comes kind of a little bit after, a little bit after, the command x5 on A, but we don't really know this, right? So replica E doesn't really know about the commitment yet, as indicated by these dashed lines. So it still doesn't know that there is any command that may interfere with its request to set 9 to x. So it will take this x set to 9, x9, replicate it to some other quorum, some quorum in the system. In this case, maybe replica C and D were closer. So these were the first replicas that received this pre-accept kind of replication message. But we can see that the replica D doesn't really have anything in its dependency set, right? It doesn't know of the previous command. But because these 2 quorums, from the old command, from the command from a different opportunistic leader, and the command from this new, command leader E, they did intersect at this replica C. So replica C actually knows that, okay, yes, I can take this x, equals 9 operation. I can write 9 to x, but there is something that has to happen before, right? So, this replica C will communicate back to the the leader for this operation, to replica E, that I do have something, I have a dependency, so you have to honor this dependency and kind of bump up the sequence number, right? So at this point, the protocol goes into this slow mode, so it's not committing on a one RTT on a fast path because it received some conflicts, right? Because the leader has learned of these conflicts, and it kind of follows more of a regular multi-Paxos, or Paxos rather, a regular Paxos protocol, where this machine E is then going to send another message and kind of force an acceptance of this command, but now with the dependency, right? So it will force the acceptance of this operation x equals 9, at this new sequence 1, and with the dependency of previous command issued by leader A. So once this is acknowledged, command can commit, E can reply to the client, and this commitment can be essentially replicated, modified to the rest of the nodes. What's good about EPaxos is, first of all, obviously we don't have this like a single leader bottleneck kind of issue, but we also don't have. It's also very helpful in the wide area network scenarios, right? So if we have wide area networks, if we had a traditional like multi-Paxos or a protocol, a client would have to reach to a leader somewhere in this wide area network, and that most likely would be a wide area network RTT, right? As the client would reach to the leader, it would have to traverse across the wide area network and wait for the reply back. All of that is wide area network communication. So by not having a single leader sitting somewhere in some region in this protocol, by having every replica responsible for talking and accepting, talking to clients and accepting the requests from clients, we kind of avoid this one wide area network RTT, right? And obviously, this only benefits us when we can also avoid the conflicts, right? Because if we do capture the conflict, we still go into this two wide area network RTTs of latency to commit. But if we're lucky, if we can talk to our local machine, local replica, and be lucky in terms of not having the conflicts for this particular operation, then we can achieve the commitment in one wide area network RTT. So in terms of latency, that's kind of the big selling point of EPaxos. In terms of latency on wide area networks, it can be a lot faster. So that's kind of the ideas of EPaxos. Now, in this figure, they actually specify that they pretty much show that the opportunistic leader, the command leader, has to talk to this quorum, right? And in this case, the quorum is just 2 additional machines. So the quorum is 3 out of 5 machines in this configuration. If we kind of remember the inspiration for this protocol, the fast Paxos, the fast quorum typically be larger, right? So the original EPaxos paper talks about a fast quorum that is larger in the kind of unoptimized case, and then they introduce some optimizations that allow them to restrict this quorum, reduce this quorum to something more manageable for at least for the configurations with 3 and 5 nodes, right? When, I believe when the configuration goes to like 7 nodes, it will be more than the majority quorum. But for the 5-node configuration, we only need 3 machines to agree for the fast quorum because of some optimizations, right? So without the optimizations, yeah, I think this is something I missed in my improvisation. Without the optimizations, when the machine that received the client request and talking to the quorum, it can commit on a fast path. So I missed the fast path condition. It will commit if all of these other replicas have the same dependency sets, right? So they agree, right? So in this case, they agree that, okay, there is no dependency. Both B and C agree that there are no dependencies for this command. So A can commit. The fast pass condition has been met. In this example, the authors try to show that you can still get the fast pass commitment if your quorum, aside from the leader, agree on some other dependency, right? So here, the leader knows that there is a command that there was an operation before, x equals to 5. Now we're trying to set x to 3. So it has this dependency, but it doesn't know about that other dependency from the leader E. But by the time B and C know this dependency, and they both agree on the dependency list, on the sequence number, and this figure shows that this is sufficient condition for the fast quorum. And this is actually one of the questions I had, because I am not entirely sure that this is correct. In my understanding of regular EPaxos, that would be a correct condition without the optimizations. But when you optimize to reduce the fast quorum, you actually have to have this B and C agree on the dependencies proposed by the leader.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt too much, but I agree. And also their justification doesn't actually apply to the optimization either. They justify it based on conditions that are only used in the proof without the optimization. If you actually look at the proof, you can also find counterexamples where this doesn't work, their protocol. They only need to increase the replication factor by one, sorry, the quorum by 1. But yeah, I agree.
Alexei, don't they agree? Both B and C received the same message before this X is equal to 3 command, so they have the same dependencies, so they agree.
So B and C have the same dependency, right? Yeah. So this paper claims that this is sufficient for you to commit to the fast pass.
Oh, but, you're saying A does not have the same dependency.
But I believe, at least in my remembrance of EPaxos, original EPaxos paper, right? I believe.
But A also gets that message before getting those messages. So A also sees that dependency. Maybe that's the difference.
Yeah.
I pasted a case that can demonstrate, I'm pretty sure, the fact that this doesn't work into the chat, but I haven't have a look at it and I'll chat about it later in the discussion.
Okay.
So yeah, anyway, this is kind of the question I had with this figure and my understanding of the original EPaxos protocol, that this agreement, that this condition where B and C agree, or actually all of the non-leader machines essentially agree on the dependency set. I think that that applies for a situation that original EPaxos calls unoptimized EPaxos with a larger fast quorum. And when they specifically talk about optimizing for a smaller fast quorum, the B and C have to agree. They have to agree with whatever the A has sent, and A sent A0, right? It has sent only one dependency. So they actually have to, like the paper mentions that if let's say, if B agrees with A's dependency, then it will mark so and make it durable that there is no disagreement with the command leader, right? Here there is a disagreement. So I don't think this condition, at least based on just naive reading the paper and without going too much into the proof of the original EPaxos, this condition should not hold here. That's my opinion, though. My kind of cursory understanding, because I haven't had time to dig deeper right now, and I don't remember that many details anymore.
It's actually really hard to piece it demonstrate, because the proof of EPaxos is actually really convoluted. It's very hard to view, but counterexamples can be found, I think, a bit more easily.
So yeah, this is the question for me. I'm not sure how correct this is just by reading the original paper, because I think that contradicts the original paper. that being said, a big contribution of this EPaxos Revisited paper lies in, they kind of have two contributions. They have some optimizations that they call talk. We have a good picture of this. I don't think so. Maybe there was a picture. Yeah, here, I think. This talk optimization that they introduced aims at reducing the conflicts, right? And they reduce the conflicts essentially by adding the delays, which it is intuitive, right? If you give more time for the messages to arrive, then you can have some kind of deterministic way to agree on the order. And that's kind of what they do. They rely on time synchronization and add the delay for message processing. So the leader will say, I'm sending you this message, you may receive it at any time, but don't start processing it till, some later time that's included in the message. So obviously it relies on a really good time synchronization, but, the processing of the message will be delayed. And the idea is, to avoid this kind of situation right here, like E has experienced, right? If we delay the processing of these messages on B and C to a much later time, right? Then, we will capture that message being received here, and we can kind of agree on these conditions, right? Agree on, hey, both B and C, have the same dependency set, both C and D have the same dependency set, so we can play with this condition, which again, I'm not entirely sure is correct, but that we can kind of reach this and say that we can commit in fast path, but we do add the delay. So that's kind of my biggest concern at this point, but maybe because I don't fully understand the paper just yet. The contribution that I like the most is not so much this talk, again, because I'm not entirely sure it's correct, but the evaluation, right? So they have evaluated EPaxos a lot more.
Alexei, yeah. Can you clarify something? Yeah. I thought this talk optimization makes correctness coupled with clock synchronization, and apparently it isn't. Benedict says it isn't. Can you explain?
No. So clock synchronization is there only to wait out for.
Oh.
To give you more time.
Oh, okay.
Right, but
it's just in the best case scenario, you don't ever have disagreements. That's all that it gives you.
Yeah. But okay, like if you don't wait for this, or clock gets messed up, you kind of degrade down to the regular protocol where you address the dependencies with the two-phase operation, right?
That's very neat. That's very neat.
Yeah, I agree. My concern is that this talk optimization relies on this condition explained here.
Okay, I see.
And this contradicts the EPaxos paper, the original paper. At least when you have the fast quorum of 3 out of 5.
It would be interesting to find a bug in an NSTI paper.
The evaluation,
I was going to say, I mean, I've placed, I'm reasonably sure there's a counterexample that demonstrates that you couldn't successfully recover a transaction. We can discuss it later, maybe when.
The recovery part. Got it. Oh, that's
it's great recovery. So, yeah, I mean, the formulation would be fine without recovery. It's only recovery.
Oh, I see. But yeah, that's a big concern. No, that's a big concern.
Yeah. That concern kind of blows the talk optimization up.
You said 2 contributions. So the first is talk, the second is evaluation.
I think the one that I like the most, because I'm not sure about talk, but I do like the evaluation right here, like what I'm showing on the screen right now. And that's because they did kind of a more they did a deeper look at the evaluation, right? So instead of kind of aggregating everything and presenting, hey, this is the median, across everywhere. They do present latencies, for example, for each data center, right? So 5 data centers. And for different parameters of the Zipf distribution and for different number of reads versus writes, because this all impact the conflict, right? And obviously the conflict is a big part in the performance of the protocol. So it's a little bit difficult to read these figures at a glance, but they're not really that difficult at all. So the blue color indicates that EPaxos median latency, in this case, the top row, is better than multi-Paxos in this particular setup. And I believe the California region was the the leader region for multi-Paxos in the comparison. So Virginia EPaxos is better. California multi-Paxos is better, and that's because there is no wide area network communication to the leader, right? So the red indicates that multi-Paxos latency, median latency, is mean latency in this case, mean latency is better, right? Here, we have kind of some situations where EPaxos latency would be better, and some situations where multi-Paxos latency would be better, and that all depends on essentially your conflict, right? The more top right you go, the more conflicts you're going to get. So if you have a workload with more conflicts, then EPaxos mean latency in this region in particular will be worse, right? In Japan, very far away from the leader, pretty much under almost all conditions, the mean latency of multi-Paxos is better, and the same for Europe. Another interesting thing that what they found is that regardless of this mean latency, even when it's a lot better for EPaxos, the P99 latency oftentimes a lot worse for EPaxos compared to multi-Paxos, and that is across the region. So that's the second row in here. Maybe if you are really concerned with the predictability of your performance, EPaxos may not be the best protocol, just judging by this this figure. And the figure on the bottom, the purple essentially indicates the conflict, right, for these different workloads in each region. So you can kind of see that more conflict means more latency, less advantage or bigger disadvantage for EPaxos. So I think this is kind of a nice breakdown of latencies and how much EPaxos can contribute in terms of latency on the wide area network. So I like that.
Alexei, yeah, this is great visualization, but I didn't understand how the conflict rates correspond to the previous graphs.
What do you mean previous?
I mean, the conflict rate graph seems similar at each region, right? So Virginia,
and
Oregon.
it is similar, right? If you look Virginia, mean latency in Virginia, right? The most blue color is the biggest advantage of EPaxos compared to multi-Paxos. The lighter blue means a few less advantage, right? So it gets into the smallest latency advantage when the conflict is high.
Yeah.
Right. So you increase the conflict, EPaxos starts to struggle. That's what it shows. But here, it's not enough for it to struggle to still be worse than multi-Paxos. It's still better than multi-Paxos, but by a small margin. Right. Mm-hmm. But if you look at Oregon, the top red here, that's I believe what 25 to 50% disadvantage, right, over multi-Paxos, and that aligns with the highest conflict in that particular workload. So
I'm saying that in the bottom row, all those 5 things are the same, more or less the same.
Yeah, they are very similar because it's kind of the same workload. Each region has the client that And I think that they are similar. Yeah.
Then how do they, I don't know, correspond to row 2 or row 1?
Okay, I'm losing you here. The correspondence, I mean, like higher conflict works for EPaxos. That's what we can kind of see from here. Higher conflict, smaller advantage of EPaxos. Higher conflicts, bigger disadvantage of EPaxos, right? Low conflict, better performance of EPaxos. And that's expectable. Right? We expect that conflict will correlate with the performance of EPaxos. And obviously this doesn't have any kind of actual correlation, except visually you can kind of see that they are somewhat similar. Like all I'm trying to say is higher conflict works for EPaxos, and that is visible on the latency figures. Okay. Yeah. I think at this time I probably want to stop in terms of going over the paper. There are a few other things that they pointed out, like the difference between the commit and execute latency, and the fact that the original EPaxos paper really measured the commit latency, but the execute latency includes in itself like more stuff. Like you have to commit and execute all the dependencies, right?
Yeah.
So they show that in some cases, in some regions here, for mean and even more so for P99 latency, that execute latency can be a lot higher, right? So so that's another kind of big discrepancy from the original EPaxos paper in terms of evaluation. Something that they did more thorough here.
Yes, this is.
I'm not sure if you went over it, but there's another important contribution to the paper, which is guaranteeing the execution of commit can occur. So like EPaxos has like a liveness issue, and they I'm pretty sure that their proposal there does work and is like a material improvement for EPaxos.
Yeah, that's section 3, I believe, right? Bounding the dependency chains. Yeah. Again, like part of the thing is they explained that the original paper said, we haven't really observed this happen in our evaluation, so they hand wave it and
they just hand wave it by saying that essentially well, I think they actually say something like they prioritize processing earlier transactions over later ones or something. That's how they get around it. But I mean, there is a material improvement to EPaxos, I think, the formulation they have, although they don't really go into detail about that. Transactions.
What is the idea of bounding dependency chains? How do they do it?
So I mean, if you want me to answer, you have to have like a complete cycle essentially for you to be able to execute the dependency graph in EPaxos. And all they do is they say that for any transaction, they don't say this explicitly, but for any committed transaction at least. That must execute after a transaction, whatever graph you end up producing later, then you can say for sure that it doesn't need to be a member of your dependencies, because obviously it's going to execute later. So you can just prune future dependencies, and that allows you to create like smaller cycles that you can execute.
Okay, so the idea is to go till you see a cycle and then break the dependencies there. Is that
no? So I mean, you have to essentially if you have a cycle, you need to be able to complete the cycle with in the dependency graph of EPaxos, so you can do a topographical sort on it, so you can then execute them. And the idea is you just essentially you break out of wider cycles by ruling out dependencies that must execute later. So you're only a member of a smaller cycle essentially. If that makes sense. That's my hand waving kind of like easy explanation of it. If that made sense.
Is there a figure showing an example?
I think they have a performance figure, but not so much the.
Okay.
Oh yeah, actually, figure 3.
Okay. Oh no. Right. This is the infinite dependency chain example, right? I was wondering if there is a figure about breaking the cycle. I think Appendix A1 is mentioned at the bottom of the section. Is that right? Go a little bit more. Appendix A1. Okay. Oh no, this is about drift.
Upper bound on execution latency. That's the appendix, but figure. Yeah. Need more time with this, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it involves some reasonable familiarity with EPaxos as well to kind of conceptualize it if there's no diagram.
Yeah. Okay. So in that example, how would we break the dependency? Figure 3. That seems like a very, pathological example, and like how do you break the infinite dependency there? Pathological, but possible. Yeah.
So I'm not super familiar with EPaxos, but I think in the last paragraph of section 3, it seems like the claim is that, well, the sentence is, given two instances A and B, EPaxos states that if B has A as a dependency and B has a higher sequence number than A, then B is serialized after A. So I think the claim is that, like, just by looking at the sequence number of B and A, you can determine that in this example from figure 3 that B will be serialized after A. And therefore, like, the pathological, you can just sort of circumvent the pathological nature of what's going on in figure 3.
Yeah, so the thing they don't say explicitly there is that the sequence number isn't necessarily fixed until they're committed. So you can't do this until both have committed. But yeah, that's basically what they do.